Assassin's Creed Odyssey, can you have fun with it on Steam Deck? That's the question we're going to answer today. Now, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the second of these more sort of open world RPG-like Assassin's Creed games. Set in ancient Greece, is probably one of the more popular of the modern Assassin's Creed games. I know they've recently gone back to the older formula with Assassin's Creed Mirage, but a lot of people did like Odyssey when it first came out. So, can you play it on Steam Deck? Well, yes you can. You're not going to run it at max graphics settings with 60 frames per second, no you're not. But you can play it handheld pretty well if you're willing to make just a few small sacrifices. So with that, let's get stuck in. Now, I am using Steam Deck OS 3.5 when I'm playing this game. That might make a big difference for you. I'm not quite sure. I've not played it on the sort of older ones, but Steam Deck OS 3.5 was supposed to make quite a big improvement to performance and how well a lot of games ran. I'm going to show my graphic settings on screen now, and I'm mostly playing at medium settings with a few extra tweaks. So I've turned the cloud graphics down by one because I don't spend that long looking at the sky, and I've actually turned the texture detail up to high, and those are the only two tweaks that I've made from the default medium settings. And with that, I'm getting a pretty stable 30 frames per second while playing the game. I've put both the FPS cap on in-game, and I've also used the Steam OS limiter to set the game to 30, and it's pretty locked for the entire time that I play. And like I said, so far this seems to work throughout the entirety of the game, and that includes combat, dialogue, playing at nighttime, playing at daytime, you know, even roaming on the sea. I thought for sure that playing on the, on the sea, on the open water with the waves and, foam splashing and that kind of thing, I was sure that I would take a hit in frame rate, but no, it seems to be a locked 30 frames per second for the entire time on these settings, which I'm surprised by, but really pleased by. And to be honest, even though I seem to say it quite a lot, I'm surprised at how well this game runs on the Steam Deck. You would have thought by now I'd be used to just how well the Steam Deck performs, but each time I play a game like this, I am surprised. I did a previous video on Assassin's Creed Origins, check that out if you want to have a look. But after that, I thought Odyssey would perform worse, but it seems to be kind of about the same, medium-ish graphic settings getting about a locked 30 frames per second. And it's really playable. The combat is fine at 30. You don't really need this combat to be at 60 frames per second for it to be fun and fluid. When the PS5 and the Xbox Series X first came out and we were playing all these games at 60 frames per second, I think I started to get a bit spoiled on 60 FPS games, and I thought that I would never really want to go back to 30. But I think really the more you play games on 30, you just get used to it. I've been playing this for a little while now on Steam Deck, and I'm just completely used to the fact that it plays at 30 frames, and you really don't notice the difference once you've gotten sort of stuck in and you've been playing it for a few hours. Sure, if you're the type of gamer that plays a couple of games at once and one of them's running at 30 and one of them is running at 60, then yes, I definitely think you would notice when you're going back and forth between those. But if you're just playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and it's locked at 30, then after a while you won't notice the difference, especially on the smaller screen. I think that does help to make a big difference. Now, if you take these graphic settings, about medium, and you've locked it at 30 FPS, then you get about 2.5 hours of battery, which that's fine for me. I'm playing on an LCD Steam Deck. I would like an OLED, but I haven't got an OLED Steam Deck. So you probably would get longer battery life if you do have one of these new fancy OLED Steam Decks. Now, if you want to lower the graphics settings to increase the frame rate, you can set everything down to low, but that will still only get you up to about 45, maybe 50 frames per second. Nothing I did ever got me to 60. I really did try just because I wanted to see if it was possible to include it in the video, but no, I could never reach 60 frames per second. Even on low, I only got 45 to 50. I don't really think this is the best way to play though, because you do sort of start to notice that difference between the, the character textures and the world textures, that kind of thing. It looks quite a bit muddier playing it on low, just for that sort of increase in frame rate. But if you really don't like 30 frames per second, then it is possible for you to get 45 to 50. Funnily enough though, lowering the graphics setting and increasing the frame rate actually seemed to make the fans kick in more. That is the point where I started to hear them whir up, and that's actually when I noticed that I hadn't been hearing them before. It was more sort of when they kicked in at 45, 50 frames, I was like, oh wait, I don't remember hearing that when I was playing at 30, and yeah, I went back and checked, and it doesn't really spin up before that. But lowering the graphics settings to get that higher frame rate does seem to make the fans go faster, so maybe something to bear in mind if you really hate the noise of the Steam Deck fans. Now, one last thing regarding the sort of performance and setup of this game. It is a Ubisoft game, so when you launch the game, it does also open Uplay, the Ubisoft launcher. With Origins, I did have a couple of issues with this. The launcher would make things crash if it remained open. I've not had that problem with Odyssey. In fact, I didn't even have to log in again. I thought previously the way that Steam installed games on the operating system on the Steam Deck, everything was sort of packaged off, and that included the launchers. So I did think that there was sort of like a fresh install for each game, and so your launcher settings wouldn't save. But the fact that I didn't have to log in kind of makes me think that might not be the case anymore. But if this is your first Assassin's Creed game on the Steam Deck, then yeah, just bear in mind you probably will have to set up Uplay, the Ubisoft launcher. So in these videos, I like to talk a little bit about what a game is like to play specifically on the Steam Deck, but then also talk a little bit about what the game is like to play itself. Now, we've sort of covered settings and performance on the Steam Deck. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's like just to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The first thing I'd like to say is that I just kind of enjoy hanging out in this world. I think it's really easy these days for a lot of people to sort of hate on these big Assassin's Creed games because, you know, the combat can be a little bit bland, and some of the quests can be kind of boring as well. But, you know, on the other hand, if you're not looking for anything too involved, anything too challenging, you know, maybe you just want a game that you can spend like hundreds of hours in, or, you know, you're looking for a game that's really going to give you worth for your money, or, you know, maybe you just enjoy ticking off those quests, going through them one by one, then this could be a game for you, because you definitely get a lot in this game. Not to mention, I think ancient Greece just has a lot of really amazing locations to see, and I think they look really good on the Steam Deck. It's really fun to see these places, you know, running on a handheld system. One thing I like that they changed for Odyssey versus Origins is questing can be really specific. You know, you can literally have map markers to tell you where it is that you need to go, or instead of having a literal map marker, you can get sort of clues on the map instead. So the game might tell you that the person you're looking for is in this area of the country. You know, maybe they're in the southeast section, and they might be at a particular fort or something like that. And from there, it's up to you to kind of work out the clues, try and figure out which location the person you're after is in. Or, you know, maybe if you do know that they're in a particular fort, you still don't know exactly where they are. You have to arrive there, you know, sort of use Icarus to try and figure out exactly where the person you're after is, because the forts contain a lot of people. And it's, you know, that just makes things a little bit more interesting. And branching off from that, sometimes you can get a couple of main quest lines that sort of feed off each other in that way. So for example, one of them, I've been given 2 quests. One of them just said, find this person, he's in this sort of section of the country, but it didn't give you any more detail than that. And then there was a second main quest line that I could do at the same time, which I happened to do first. And when I finished that main quest line, part of the reward was you talk to somebody who happened to know in a bit more detail where the person from the first quest was. And that felt really sort of rewarding. It felt like I'd done some investigating, rather than just being pointed to exactly where the person was straight away. The fact that I'd chosen to do these quests in this order changed things up for me, and it allowed me to pinpoint exactly where the person was. Now, when it comes to things like enemy strongholds and forts, I really enjoy sneaking around these. This is the point in the game where I try and go super stealthy, and I try and take enemies down, you know, one at a time, sneaking up close and assassinating them, or maybe using the bow for sort of this long range damage. I think one of the things that I like about this is that, yes, it feels rewarding to assassinate them one at a time and, you know, make your whole way through the fort not being caught. That's really rewarding. But at the same time, if you do fail, it feels like there's actually a proper punishment. It's not just you sort of back off and nothing happens, you know. No, the soldiers will call enemies, your bounty system will go up, and sometimes these roaming mercenaries will show up, which are much harder to fight. Everybody will be on alert, and the fort will just sort of become much more full, much more dangerous. It's much easier to get caught. And while the combat can be a bit, you know, easy and a bit boring, if you are suddenly surrounded by lots of mercenaries and lots of sort of these elite enemy soldiers, you just have to run. You can't beat them all, so you just have to run, and you have to sort of try again another time, because they'll be on alert for a little while. So things can get really dangerous, and that adds to the fun. I also think the Steam Deck makes the forts a little bit more fun, because when you're in one of these enemy locations, you can't save the game. The options just completely grayed out. You can't save it at all. But you can spend quite a long time in these forts, especially if you're trying to stealthily assassinate everybody. You can spend like, I don't know, like half an hour, something like that, in one of the forts. So if you realize that you've suddenly got to do something in real life and you can't save it, that's kind of annoying. But with the Steam Deck, you can just use the quick resume feature, you know, put the Steam Deck to sleep and come back to it another time, which I really appreciate. Now, these forts also tie into sort of a larger warring faction system that is happening all throughout the game. A lot of the areas of the map are controlled by either the Athenians or the Spartans. And the more of their sort of like leaders that you kill, the more of their supplies you destroy, the more of their forts that you clear out, the weaker their hold on that land becomes, and eventually an enemy army will invade. And because you're a mercenary, you can choose which side it is that you want to fight on. These are kind of bigger battles. There's a lot of sort of button mashing with these, but the rewards are pretty good. You can usually choose to join either the invading army or the defending army. One of them's harder than the other one, and so you get more rewards for that one. And I think they're fun to do from time to time. You probably wouldn't want to keep doing them over and over and over again because that might get a bit samey, but yeah, from time to time they are fun to do. And just by playing the game and, you know, wiping out these forts and stuff, you sort of naturally trigger them every now and then. Anyway, finally, I know I said that the combat can be a little easy, but if you are looking for something a bit more challenging, then the game has a series of quests called Legendary Beasts, and these are much more difficult. If you do come across them, then watch out, because I've died to these, I think, more times than really any other section of the game. They're quite challenging. The story at this point is pretty similar to a lot of the other Assassin's Creed game stories. You know, there's a bit of a mystery. You know, your mother and father, they might have been involved in something. There's a cult after you, a bit of a secretive cult. It's probably going to turn out to be, you know, either the Assassin's group or the Templars group. I am quite interested, but you know, I can sort of see where it's going already. I think though, if you are a fan already, or you were considering playing some of these Assassin's Creed games and you wanted to think about maybe trying them on Steam Deck, you should definitely go for it. It runs really well. Like I said, you have to make a few sacrifices, but overall the game is so playable on Steam Deck and it's a lot of fun. And I did say this about Assassin's Creed Origins, I am now saying it again about Odyssey, but I think it's really cool to play these giant open world Assassin's Creed games on a handheld. Handheld technology has just come so far recently, and it's really amazing to see. And actually, now that I've done both Origins and Odyssey on Steam Deck, I'm really curious to see if you can play Valhalla on the Steam Deck. So let me know if you'd be interested in a video about that, you know, similar to these two that I've already done. So how about you? Are you interested in picking up Assassin's Creed Odyssey on Steam Deck? Are you happy with the kind of performance that I've got? Does it put you off? Are you already playing it maybe? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.